On today's Modern Musicking Show, I sit down and talk with Nancy Galbraith, one of our composition faculty at Carnegie Mellon. We get a profile of one of my favorite film composers, Michael Giacchino. Got a trumpet solo in the student showcase, and I get yet another saxophone lesson. I hope you enjoy it. Bye! Today on Jacob Randall Holmes with Jacob Randall Holmes. Jacob, would you please play for me your very favorite holiday song having to do with Arbor Day?
There's an easy comp trick to this one. Last Arbor Day, the sun came out. I found myself. I was walking down that road I always go by. How the time did fly. My Arbor Day pastime was new. This Arbor Day song, come on, sing along. This Arbor Day song, waiting for you to come through on this Arbor Day song. Sing along with me now. Don't feel like a coward, please. Put a smile on that face on Arbor
Happy Arbor Day.
Day. Happy Arbor Day.
Hi, I'm Lance LeDuc, and we're in the Vlahakis recording studio at Carnegie Mellon University School of Music, and it's my pleasure to speak today with Nancy Galbraith, who's a member of the composition faculty here. Nancy, thank you so much for sitting down to talk for a bit.
Oh, sure.
So can you explain to me, well, what all do you do as a composition teacher?
Well, one of my favorite things that I do is I love to meet new people, and I love to find out what their creative source is, what really inspires them. And sometimes it's not so easy. I'd like to find out, for instance, sometimes it is easy if somebody has, for instance, a really good jazz background. It's very obvious where they should be going in their classical contemporary music. The lines have become, of course, as you know, very blurred at this point. And oftentimes with a student like that, I might end up in a conversation such as what makes something pure jazz versus classical contemporary with jazz influences. Sometimes people come in the door and they just studied classical music their whole life, and they're really creative, but they don't exactly know how to be creative in the 21st century.
How often does a student show up with a very clear idea of what their style is or what they want to do, or is there no such thing as a norm?
More and more, I believe. I can see phases. We had a phase of people that came in the door and they all wanted to be music theater people. And one of them actually got on the team of Hamilton. Oh, cool. Another one got on Book of Mormon. And there was a whole class of people that seemed to be interested in that. There was a video game era, and before that, a jazz era. Now it's becoming more into electronics and classical music, acoustic music. But sometimes it's, so I would say there were phases, and a lot of it depends on what's happening in other music worlds as well.
And so how does it, if you're a composition major here, either undergrad or grad, you come in and you get a weekly private lesson, or how does that work?
Yes, you get a weekly private lesson, and that's where we really tear you apart. No, I'm kidding. But then, of course, they have pretty heavy schedules, and of course, your rhythmics and all kind of normal music classes they have. But they get an hourly lesson per week.
And do they meet together at any point as well? Or?
Yes, they do. They have a composers forum, and that's always kind of fun. They get to rip each other up a little bit.
So it's just a lot of ripping.
Yeah, a little, just a little. And they oftentimes they present their music. Oftentimes we have a composer in residence with the Pittsburgh Symphony will come in. But most of the time it's just to basically critique, either good or bad, each other's music or just music in general that they are presenting.
So on a week-to-week basis, how much music will a student be expected to write, or does it work like that, or how does it sort of work?
I don't put a whole lot of credence in saying you have to have up to here done. Sometimes you can do a lot of creative work that isn't down on paper. And a lot of times people are really good improvisers, and I know I give them the space to be able to do that. And then, of course, I'll say, well, you understand at a certain point I have to see something on paper to be able to critique it and work with it. But generally speaking, we have composer concerts every semester. We have 2 composer concerts. And I try to encourage people that's a really good goal for composers to have something to be, something to strive toward.
I teach brass, and so I have a set of criteria when a student performs. I kind of know what I'm listening for, and I can sort of tell. So you're looking at scores, you're listening to recordings. What's that, the audition process? How does that work to get in here?
Well, we have a pre-screening, and we listen to performances, and we also look at scores. And of course, the composition faculty, you know all of us, and we are all very different, which is, I think, a strength of our department, because we all feel that our students, that when they leave here, they should have a voice, and it should be their voice. I don't mind if somebody's been in a rock band, for instance. I think a lot of people in rock bands are very creative, as long as they have some classical background and know what world they are entering. You can have a wide array of experience coming in the door. I don't necessarily think that experience and having had all of the right opportunities necessarily makes you a gifted composer.
Sure.
So, we're looking for obviously some technique and some awareness of the classical music world, but also a spark that's very difficult to describe.
This is showing my ignorance about it. My assumption is that, say, a generation ago, then everybody, if you were going to be a composition major, you better know how to play piano. And is that still, first of all, is that true? And if it was, is that still the case? Or how has technology affected the way composers are creating music?
If you ask one of my colleagues, he would have a completely different answer. I really believe, and maybe it's a lot my background, I started as a piano major, and I really feel that in some way you have to have a physical connection to the music. And sometimes if somebody, to me, piano is an instrument that, I don't believe that you should write at the piano necessarily, but at least at some point have some kind of contact with a keyboard is important for me. However, I'll say to somebody, look, you're a violinist. Let's work from that standpoint and see if you can make some kind of arrangement, even if it's orchestra, do the foreground material on the violin or conduct it, have some kind of physical contact. The electronic world is that has entered in the last 5 years has really rather changed a lot, I believe, of our approach. And I think, we have to step back, and I'm constantly stepping back and reevaluating what, approach to music. That's a constant reevaluation process. Those kids that I was, describing to you that came in with music theater, they could just sit down and whip out stuff. You know what those people were like on music theater people. They just sit down and whip stuff
Falls out of them,
Yeah, it falls out of them at the keyboard. I don't necessarily think that is a necessity. And one of my colleagues would say that they think that even piano is a hazard. Because they think that pianists get stuck into...
It is when I played. It's definitely a hazard.
Yeah. And for a lot of my students, I might add.
Well, Nancy, this has been so fun to get to talk to you and know you a little bit more. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about what's going on at Carnegie Mellon, then you can reach out through the website and get in contact with you
Absolutely.
as well, right? There's an easy way to reach out to you. So thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Lance Learns to Play.
So today on Lance Learns to Play, we're continuing my efforts at learning the saxophone. This is Ben Morris. Ben, what are we working on next?
Okay, we're gonna work on tonguing and
we're going to explain really quickly the fingering system kind of for the saxophone. It's very similar to every other woodwind, as in it's a basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pattern. Flute, clarinet, oboe, to some extent bassoon, all kind of base a lot of their fingerings off of this. There are obviously variants, but
And it always starts with the left hand, index finger, middle finger, ring finger. Then
yes,
that's
yes.
the concept.
Keeping in mind that a longer tube makes a lower sound, you can reasonably understand that every time you close a hole, the note gets lower.
I
Right?
see.
Yeah, that's basically it. And then that is the octave key will raise all those notes. An
Which
octave.
one's the octave key?
So
this
it's
one or this one?
yeah, right
This
here.
one.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, you just want to pivot from that first knuckle to get there. You don't want to. A lot of students will do this. They'll actually lift their thumb off to
Oh,
press it.
I see.
It's a very light key. You just have to. It just has to open the pip up here.
The pip. Okay, and Gladys Knight would be happy. So the do I keep all my fingers in contact with the pads?
All at all times.
At all
There
times.
should be no.
Should never lift them.
except to reach another key.
Okay.
The pearls here that are the white circles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, your fingers should be touching them all the time, and then your pinkies should rest here, and then on the lowest of these two. This is So
This one.
yeah, that one. So get your thumb in there.
Oh,
The
I
thumb
see.
rest here. Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, and pinky, that actually all looks good. Another thing to note is your thumb. At any point, like never at any point, even while standing, should you support weight with your thumb.
Oh,
Unlike a bassoonist, we don't have a lot of stuff for this thumb to do, so it's
Uh-huh.
easy to let it support weight. But
Right.
wiggle your fingers like this. Now grab your thumb and pull it down, and wiggle your fingers like this. Which one has more tension?
this one.
The second one. It's easier to move freely if you're not holding weight on your thumb.
So the purpose of the thumb is really just to
Stabilization.
stabilize it, right?
Side to side.
Okay.
Yes.
So it just
Exactly.
keeps it from rolling.
I normally let it rest right in my hip.
Okay.
And even while standing, I'll let it rest there. Make
My
sense?
Fingers, and so you said the top one for this pinky and the bottom one for this pinky.
Yep. That's where I keep my fingers. Obviously, you have to move them to hit all these other keys here, but that's where I keep them just as a basic.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So now moving on to tonguing, we played a C sharp, I think, last time, right?
I think so, yeah.
Let's go ahead and hear that. Yeah. Okay. So I had to bring mine down to you, and C sharp is a very flat note anyway.
Oh,
so
okay.
this is how saxophone's tuned, by the way. Take your mouthpiece and move it in on the cork just a little bit. So you can, and normally it helps to ratchet it a tiny bit and push at the same time. Yes. Yeah. So that's how we tune. We move the mouthpiece up and down the cork. Really what it does is it changes where the origination of the sound is, makes the tube.
So as you mentioned before, the length of the instrument will indicate the pitch of the
Yeah.
instrument, and so this is fine tuning that. We're
This
making
is-
it a tiny bit longer or a tiny bit
A
shorter.
couple cents at a time.
I
Yes,
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. C sharp again. All right, not bad. So when we're tonguing on the saxophone, a lot of band directors use ta because they're talking to a wide range of instruments. On the saxophone, I don't find that to be super useful. I like to use either da, la, or do, or lu. Something with a D or an L syllable.
D or L.
Because you don't need to hit the reed that hard. The reed will stop vibrating if you touch it. It just, your air is making it move.
I see.
Actually, at the moment, play a note, and then I want you to move the tip of your tongue as close as you can get to the tip of the reed, but don't touch it.
Okay.
Yeah, so what happened?
Well, I eventually touched it and it stopped.
Touched the reed and it stopped.
It did.
But it didn't take any effort,
No,
right?
it was very.
You tapped it and it just stopped playing.
Yep.
That's the minimal amount of effort that it takes to stop the reed.
I see.
Yeah.
So
when we
the
tongue,
tendency is to
no,
over tongue.
use
yeah.
half of my tongue
Yeah,
touching the reed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, saying la 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 la, but keeping your jaw still. La 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 la.
La,
Your
la,
tongue
la,
is
la.
touching. If there was a mouthpiece there, it's touching about where the reed and the tip rail would be.
La 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 la. Okay. La, la, la.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. So.
I noticed it was a little harsh, and then I tried to use as little as
Yeah,
possible.
it's going to be harsh either because you're using too much tongue or you're tonguing too much reed. Even if you use a little bit of tongue, but tongue like very far
Touching
down,
too much of the reed.
we get a very.
I see.
You want to just barely touch it. So Lu seems to work. Do is very similar, just a little harder. So if you have a student that is unable to make a definite difference between the sounds, then do works a little better because it's a do, lu. It's a little harder of a syllable.
I see.
Not as hard as top.
So I would have a do sound.
Yeah, do. You know, don't we all?
Just making sure.
Exactly.
That's it, do.
It's time for another music history moment.
Michael Giacchino is an American composer mostly responsible for commercial music, also known as video games, TV, and films. He has a style unique to himself, including soundtracks such as The Incredibles, Incredibles 2, Doctor Strange, Zootopia, Mission Impossible 3, Up, Rogue One, and Spider-Man Homecoming. Giacchino also played a role in some important video game music, such as the Medal of Honor series, as well as Call of Duty and Call of Duty Finest Hour. Giacchino's exciting, fast-paced, bombastic, and energetic style of composition fits the mold of all these films, which generally have a tone of being action-packed.
And that was another music history moment.
Next one's Michael
Giacchino. Giacchino.
Giacchino. Okay.
Uh-huh. And what's the last thing you're gonna say?
Do. Of course. Yeah. If we don't, then they will. So we have to. Cool. Right?
Yeah, man.
See? Do.
Talk directly in the mic for them.
I just want to give a good take. I love you guys.
Did you need it?
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah.
You got that actually really quickly.
Thank you.
I hate you.
Well, let me try to frame you then.
He's trying to frame you for a crime.
You can't frame me, copper. You got nothing on me, see? I know where all the bodies are buried, see?
Hey, thanks for watching the show. If you want to reach us with questions or comments, you can figure out all the ways to do that by clicking on any of those links and wherever you're watching this thing. We've had a great time putting these together and hope you find them useful as well. Thanks for watching.